Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. I'm Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. My friend loves egg curry, and though I've learned over the years to make complex Indian dishes like biryani, peeling a humble hard-boiled egg, that seems like totally crazy. So here's what I did. The other day I was cooking and I tapped on the egg dozens of times. Once I had boiled it, hard-boiled it, I tapped on it and it looked pretty much like a parched field. The recipe called for 6 eggs, and I kept tapping every single one of those eggs. So much so that it took me over half an hour to peel 6 eggs. The damage was done. I knew that I'd done something wrong. So I went on YouTube, and I found out that all you had to do was you had to tap the egg once, and then roll it forward. And the entire peel would unfold in a matter of seconds. That's a tip, a nifty tip that makes life so much easier. And since we travel so much every year, we picked up some of these goodies along the way. Little travel tips that make life so much easier. Let's take on 4 of them. Some of them we've been using for many years, and some of them we picked up just on this vacation to Sri Lanka and India. Here they are, 4 in a row. The first one is how to entirely sidestep jet lag. The second is how to sleep soundly in extremely noisy environments, and this is without earplugs. The third comprises of an app that sorts out your entire sequence, especially if you have a complex set of journeys. And the fourth one, why travel agents are invaluable, even though you can book everything online. Let's start out with the first one, which is how to completely sidestep jet lag. In 2010, we conducted a series of workshops based on the brain audit. It seems simple enough. The first 3-day workshop was in California, the second one was just outside Washington, D.C., and the third was in Vancouver. There was just one problem. All 3 workshops were in a span of approximately 2 weeks. This meant that we had to fly economy. We fly exclusively business now, but back then we flew economy. And so we had to fly economy from Auckland to California, and that's a distance of 10,492 kilometers, and it takes 12 hours. So we conducted our first 3-day workshop in Campbell, California. Then we flew to Washington, D.C. You see the problem unfolding, right? The time difference between Auckland and California can be between 3 to 5 hours, depending on the time of the year. Now, you land in a different time zone, you have little or no time to get used to the difference, and then you do the workshop and you're off to Washington, D.C., which is 3 hours ahead. And Vancouver? Yes, Vancouver is 3 hours behind. All of this meant that we were zipping back and forth between time zones. And bear in mind that we had 3 workshops to conduct and no time to get used to the jet lag. Except that's where our first nifty trick comes into play. It's called No Jet Lag. Simple name. There are tiny little pills that you take every 2 hours on the flight. So if our flight was 12 hours long, we had to take 6 of those pills. People often ask what's in the pills, and it's homeopathy, and this is another objection. Homeopathy is not supposed to work. The dosage is so tiny that almost every doctor will tell you it's a sham. Do we care? Of course not, because for years we've been having these pills on flights, stopping out, getting on the other side, and getting right into the time zone. To give you an extreme example, we were speaking at an event in 2017. This was in Sweden. Sweden is like the ultimate test for us Kiwis because there's a 12-hour difference. Anyway, we flew from Auckland, New Zealand to Copenhagen, Copenhagen to Stockholm, and the entire trip, if I recall, was 39 hours, door to door. The day after we landed, I was to give an hour-long presentation at around 3 p.m. Now, if you do your calculations correctly, and it's easy to do, that's 3 a.m. New Zealand time. And that's the time that you have to be on stage. You still have to wake up, you have to shower, you have to go through some of the practice runs. And then you have to give an outstanding presentation. We don't have the time or the energy to argue whether homeopathy works or not. All we know is that we travel a lot every year. We crisscross the globe for work, but mostly on vacation. And international travel is tiring, and no jet lag doesn't help you with tiredness. It's like being in a car. If you travel for 12 hours, it feels like 12 hours. However, you don't feel like you've changed so many time zones. For me especially, this is important because more often than not, a workshop, a psychotactics workshop, will be 3 days long. It's one thing to get on stage and to give an hour-long speech, but quite another to be on your feet and awake and answering questions for 3 whole days. If you speak to frequent travelers, they'll give you many methods that they use to beat jet lag. One ex-air hostess said that she doesn't eat or drink anything on the flight. Sorry, miss, but we love our champagne, and the food helps us pass time on these very, very long trips from New Zealand. We've used no jet lag since 2004, and it's worked just fine for us, so we'll stick to our weird little formula. There is a little catch, though. It has nothing to do with the ingredients. Instead, it's more to do with keeping to a plan. There are directions on the pack, and you have to read them. So before I leave, I set alarms on my phone to go off every 2 hours until we reach our destination. Siri, set the alarm for 2 p.m.
Okay, I turned it on.
Siri, set the alarm for 4 p.m.
Okay, I set an alarm for 4 p.m.
And I go through this routine. Before I leave, I'll set my alarms on the phone to go off every 2 hours until we reach our destination. That way, I can be sure that we don't miss that 2-hour cycle. Apparently, you can take it every 4 hours if you're asleep, but not many of us sleep for hours on a flight, hence the alarms keep us on track. And yes, there are times when these tablets don't work, and that's when we have been sloppy. We've taken them whenever we felt like it. Like this trip, returning back from India, we didn't keep to an alarm plan, and we were waking up at 3 a.m. when we were back in New Zealand. And we did this for a whole week. That's jet lag. So you have to do your due diligence, and you're still likely to be exhausted, but at least nicely ensconced in the new time zone. No jet lag is made in New Zealand, so pretty much every medical store and travel company has it on display. But it's also likely to be available somewhere in your country, so if you go to nojetlag.com, you can find a where to buy no jet lag, and you'll find that you can get it. Try it, and that is it. That's our first nifty travel tip. And the second one is pretty cool because it involves noise. Noise is just part of travel. How do you sleep soundly in an extremely noisy environment? And how do you do this without earplugs? Get ready for a story that you've just not been expecting. Let's assemble some really big speakers, shall we? Let's take a speaker the size of your desk. Then add another speaker on top of that. For good measure, let's add 2 more huge speakers on the other side and turn them on at full blast. Now, with those speakers going, do you think you'd be able to sleep through the night? When we traveled through Sri Lanka, we ran into some exquisite hotels and villas. But of all the places that we stayed in, Eppa Villa was my favorite. It was a huge mansion-like villa, surrounded by a forest. You'd be sitting in the balcony for breakfast, and you'd have wildlife of all sorts not more than 50 meters away. Monkeys, peacocks, monitor lizards, and the occasional mongoose. They all were part of this jungle scenario. And in the middle of it was Eppa Villa, with all of its luxury, but mostly quiet. Then, on the last day, something happened that would shatter that quiet. The place had been rented out for a big, noisy party that would start at 9 p.m. and go on until 7:30 a.m. And those speakers, that wall of speakers was aimed right at our room. And where there's a party, there are people drinking, they're talking, they're getting louder every minute. Except for the fact that we mostly slept through most of the noise. The secret is white noise. The moment we bring up this concept, most people smile. They know what white noise is all about. It's a constant background noise, especially one that drowns out other sounds. It might seem quite obvious to you, but it wasn't obvious to us at all. What we tried to do was reach for earplugs, which if you're someone like me, it's a pointless exercise. Not only am I a light sleeper, but I had damaged my right ear using cotton buds when I was younger. So I can't sleep with anything in my ear as it just hurts. Enter the white noise app. We turned it on loud to the sound of rain. And when it's loud, it almost seems like it's too loud for your ears, but your brain soon adjusts to it. And in doing so, it tunes out the rest of the noise almost completely. And you've experienced this, when you're at a party and someone across the room mentions your name. Your attention is instantly focused on that person. Instead of paying attention to the discussion right in front of you, you're listening to that other conversation. And white noise, and yes, there's an app for it both on iPhone and on Android. That's what white noise does. It does exactly that function. It helps your brain focus on the rain or whatever sound you prefer, and it tunes out the rest. All of the noise seems to disappear. So we slept through that party in Sri Lanka. We slept through the noisy clatter of feet in Leiden in the Netherlands. We've even slept with a jackhammer going outside our hotel window in Goa, India. Few hotels in the world have true soundproofing, and the more you travel, the more you realize how much you crave silence on your vacation. Well, there you have it. Battle noise with white noise, and you'll have a very restful sleep. In fact, don't just use it on vacation. You can even use it at your home every night when you go to sleep, or when your neighbor has decided to create their own wall of speakers to party through the night. And that brings us to the end of the second nifty tip. Let's see the third one, which is a travel app. A travel app that sorts out your entire holiday, your entire vacation sequence, especially if you have a complex set of journeys. Some people go on vacation from point A to point B. If that's the case, you don't need much help, do you? However, if your travel plans are a bit like ours, you're going to need a lot of help. And incredibly, that help is free in the form of an app, and it's called TripIt. The app works like a really efficient secretary. As you book hotels and cars and flights and other elements of your vacation, you tend to get an email with a confirmation, and that email comes right to your inbox. So all you have to do is to forward that email to TripIt. The moment you forward it, that app will collate all the information from the email and then order it sequentially. This means that if you're headed to Auckland on Thursday and then staying at an Airbnb and then you're picking up a car at 2 p.m., the app will slot all of these activities in chronological sequence. All of the details, the booking numbers, the directions, where it was booked, all of that stuff is there in neat little sections in the app. So you can dig deeper into your reservations as well, but you can see it all at one go. Now, if you've forgotten to book a room, TripIt pays attention. As soon as you open the app, it nudges you with a paid link. You can ignore that paid link, but it's enough of a red flag to get you to book your accommodation for the night. If you choose to opt in for their paid service, which isn't much at $45 or more per year, you'll get a lot more features that all help you if you're a frequent traveler. But if you're not a frequent traveler and just a complicated traveler like me, then the free version works just as well. What about your privacy? Obviously, all of this information is sitting somewhere on a server. Someone could get to this information. They could use it for nefarious purposes. They know where you're going. They know what you're doing. Isn't that dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous. But if someone really wants to track where you're going, if they're really motivated, there are many ways to get that information. The moment you start booking things online, or rather the moment you went online 15 or 20 years ago, your privacy was private no more. There's always the option of keeping all the information in a printed format, just like you do with your passport, offline. But if you're into digital apps, this is the way to go. TripIt. It's a really cool app. Get it from the App Store or wherever you get your apps from, and you'll find that it's absolutely outstanding. We've used it all the time. And that's nifty tip number 3. So shall we go on to 4? The fourth one is about why travel agents are invaluable, even though you can book everything online. Travel agent? Isn't that a profession from the last century? That's what I thought until I ran into a travel agent at a party. We got talking, and later when I got in touch with him, I realized that the internet wasn't the friend that I thought it was. For years, Renuka and I have been booking our tickets and our hotels online. Imagine my surprise when I realized that I had been paying a lot more by going online. Granted, our trips can be extremely complex, but even so, I was shocked at how useful the travel agent happened to be. Not only was he able to save us money, but he helps us avoid a lot of needless arguments. I don't know about you, but when Renuka and I sit down and we work out hotels and flights, it's just a nightmare. If you go to sites, nothing connects to anything. The timings are odd, the flights are weird, the airlines don't match, and soon we're getting really upset with ourselves and with each other. But that was in the past. These days, all I do is email the travel agent, and he knows my preferences. He knows what we want. And with no work whatsoever on my part, he shows up with all the flights that I need. And just to make things easier, he knows that we hate to catch early morning flights, because it means that you've got to wake up even earlier. Many of our flights take off at around 11 a.m. or noon, which means that we're nice and relaxed getting to the airport. Instead of burning through an entire evening trying to get the flights and the hotels you want, an agent takes over all the hard work for you and gives you a quote. Now, agents know that you have Google. They know that they can't randomly throw in high quotes. At first, we got some incredibly unintelligent agents, but in time, we did run into one who understood our needs, who was able to make the bookings quickly, effectively, and at the prices that worked well for us. And the agent also looks at the schedule and makes suggestions. For instance, we were booking a long break in one of these cities in Europe last year, and he said, no, that city is really boring. And it was. It's this little bit of information, these little bits and pieces and little suggestions that make a travel agent worthwhile. Plus, if you get stuck or things change, while other passengers are lining up, a travel agent can quickly make changes for you with one phone call. Walk into a travel agency today if you're planning a trip. You might be amazed at how much time and energy you save in the future. and it doesn't cost anything extra either. And there we have it. 4 nifty travel tips. So what did we cover so far? Let's do a summary, shall we? The first is how to completely sidestep jet lag. You do it with no jet lag. These are pills. You just pop them every couple of hours. And remember to set your alarms before you leave, because that is the most crucial bit. So just go to nojetlag.com, check it out for yourself. There are lots of details there. The second thing is how to sleep soundly in extremely noisy environments. And for this, earplugs are pretty hopeless, at least in my case. So we use white noise, and the sound of falling rain puts us to sleep. And when you wake up, it sounds like it's raining outside. It's like, go back to sleep. But no, we realize it's just the app. The third thing is TripIt, which is TRIPIT. That's a travel app. It sorts out your entire sequence, especially if you have a complex set of journeys. You have hotels, you have Airbnbs, you have flights, you have car rentals, and you're zigzagging. TripIt is just astounding. You will wonder what you did without it. And finally, if you've been booking everything online, I totally recommend a travel agent. I am hooked. Our travel agent has saved us hours of needless searches, gotten us out of boring places, made bookings in places where everything seemingly is full, and all of this is done without any extra charge. I don't know about you, but to me that's pretty magical. So what's the one thing that you can do today? Well, take a break. Because taking a break, even a couple of days, makes a huge difference. I mean, this break has to be without phones, without the internet, that kind of break. If you can take a break, that's great. But the one thing that you can do today is get the white noise app. Because you don't have to go on a break. You can just go to bed, turn on the white noise app, and all of that cacophony of the world seems to go away. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in psychotactics land. People often ask us how we do our planning, and we tend to do our planning almost a year in advance. So we will sit in early December and plan for the entire year. Except this year, we went away early in December. And that was because we were headed to Sri Lanka. We were headed to India because it was my parents' 50th anniversary. And so we didn't plan as much. And we got back and the planning started in January. And we decided that we're going to have a workshop, just one workshop in the United States. So there are just 15 seats there. And that is because you don't need more information. What you need is skill. This workshop is about sales pages, about landing pages. If you have a product or a service, well, you've got to sell it, and you've got to sell it online. And this is where writing a sales page comes into play. And it's very difficult for most people, including copywriters. It takes often 6-7 days to write a single sales page. Well, we're going to do it in 3 days. You're going to leave the workshop in 3 days, having learned how to write that sales page. So this is going to be in Houston, Texas, 28th, 29th, and 30th of October. If you're new to psychotactics, you'd probably think, well, that's a fair distance away. Those seats will remain and I'll make my decision. But those seats fill up very quickly, and especially in the United States because we have a lot of our clients there. So if you want more information about it, email me at sean@psychotactics.com. We made this decision just a few days ago, so this is all very brand new. If you remember 5000 BC, you should have got a notification because, as always, you get first preference. So go to 5000 BC, log in, and you will get the information. Or just email me and you will get the information. Now, if you haven't already joined 5000 BC, I'd recommend that you do, because it's a place where introverts meet, where we have discussions, where you ask questions. And a lot of people feel that they don't want to ask these questions online because they look really silly and you get rude responses. That's not 5000 BC. Like all membership sites, 5000 BC has a lot of information on copywriting, on sales pages, on article writing, lots of stuff. Information itself doesn't help you very much. Well, it does, but not as much as someone saying, okay, that's the part where you got it wrong, this is what you need to fix. You think that you would have to pay a lot of money for it, and you do. Most places you have to pay a lot of money for it, and 5000 BC is one of those exceptions. It's a place that has a motto that says, be kind, be helpful, or be gone. So go to 5000 BC. There is this waiting list thing. It says that you have to wait for 21 days. So the sooner you go there, the better for you, because you go there, you put your name on the list, 21 days later, we do a little check, and you're in. That's 5000bc.com, and that's pretty much it for the start of the year. I'm still getting back into the swing of things. When we got back, I was waking up at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and slowly now, today, in fact, I woke up at 4:30, which was pretty cool. It's taken 2 or 3 weeks to just get back this momentum, but we're onto it right now. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. And if you haven't left a review on iTunes, please do so, because last year we got just 5 reviews on iTunes. Surely you can add your review to it, tell the world why you listen to this podcast. It also helps me understand why you do that. So yes, send me email, but also leave a review on iTunes. That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. Bye-bye. Still listening? This trip to India was both a happy one and a really sad one. And the reason for it was that my uncle, and when I say uncle, most people think of someone who is a lot older and is not connected with you in any way. And this wasn't the case. This is someone who was with me since I was very little, almost since the time I was born. And he was at his daughter's place and cleaning the place, and a bunch of coconuts fell on his spinal cord. First he was paralyzed from the neck down, and then 2 weeks later he was dead. And this was before we could get to the hospital. We were still in Sri Lanka. In fact, we got the news when we just landed in Sri Lanka. And I don't know what to say. I know that a lot of people say, I'm sorry, and I know they mean well, but it's often very difficult. I don't know if you've listened to the previous podcast where we talked about how you need to do something. I'm not suggesting that you do anything for me. I'm just suggesting that when there is a death, it's often extremely difficult to cope with it. And I would say that if you're listening to this and you have a friend or someone who has dealt with the situation, then figure out what you can do for them rather than saying, I'm sorry or my condolences. We know that you mean well. I've done this before. I've said, I'm sorry. But it's very empty. It's a hollow feeling. It seems almost like nothing. I don't know. I'm not suggesting anything to you. I'm just saying that if you can, then make sure that you do something for someone else and see how you can help them instead of saying, tell me what I can do for you. That's all I'm saying. The event, my parents' 50th anniversary, went really well. Everyone showed up. Even the family of my uncle, his 3 daughters, his wife, they all showed up. And everyone had a really good time. I met all my cousins, first time in, 20 years. That was quite special. And I could say it was a good trip. It's always challenging going to India. It's filled with noise and cacophony and pollution and stuff, but this was a good trip. That's what I have to say, and that's me signing off for now. Bye for now, and see you in 5000 BC.